Under bright white light, two plastic hearts found love at first sight. One had a bullet hole, the other had a frown. But when the trial paused, oh baby, love went down. It's hot mannequin love in the court of law. No breath, no blood, just a flawless jaw. Struck a pose, then struck a spark. Made of fiberglass, but lit up the dark. Hot mannequin love with the limbs askew. Who knew Exhibit A would look so into you? She leaned just right, he's sweet just so. Like Cupid fired a dart through a Velcro torso. The jury looked confused, the bailiff blushed, the stenographer typed, objection, they're flushed. Hot mannequin love, no heartbeat, no shame, but they set off fired a dart through a Velcro torso. The jury looked confused, the bailiff blushed, the stenographer typed, objection, they're flushed. Hot mannequin love, no heartbeat, no shame, but they set off fire alarms just the same. Crime scene dolls, now courtroom flames, in love so real, it should be in chains. Hot mannequin love, not illegal but true, just don't let the judge catch them kissing in view.
What's up, everyone? How are you doing this lovely Monday? Sorry, I had to, I couldn't resist. I had to make a hot mannequin love video for the mannequins. I'm not muted, Flash fan. And I don't think Peloton's here to see it. You can see it later. What's up, Annabelle? How you doing? Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you didn't melt and hope you stayed cool. Hello, dog mom. Look at you on vacation. Oh, lucky. She's gonna kick back with her feet in the sand, watch the waves, and have a cocktail. Yay. Have two. One for me and one for you. Hello, old soul. Good to see you. We are going to have an excellent week. Look at this hair like flying free back here. Driving me crazy. All right. So we are done with Shonda for now. Oh, so disappointed when the judge only, and he didn't even dismiss it with prejudice. Or deny it with prejudice. He just denied it without prejudice. But she's at least going to have probably one more hearing. Annoying. And she knew it too. She's like, I didn't come to the courthouse today for this hearing, but I'll be there for the other ones. It just was like, wanted to zip that up and be over her. Thanks, dog mom. I appreciate that. She is going to have another hearing. This is so annoying. This was so annoying. So Shonda appeared by Zoom from prison. She has a new attorney for this. For now, whatever. And then her original attorney, Mr. Johnson, was in the courtroom, ready to be called as a witness, ready to testify. Shonda's attorney gets up there and says, I really want her here for this. If we're going to call witnesses, I want her here. Fine. You should have had her there. You know, they had to have known Mr. Johnson was probably going to be called to testify because they are saying that Shonda says she doesn't remember signing a waiver of her appearing in court after she, got sick. And I'm like, the last person in that courtroom that's going to forge her name on a document is Mr. Johnson. Please. Give me a break. So the judge did not deny that part of the motion. And then the other part of her not being competent to stand trial or whatever it was, he denied it, but without prejudice. So it's still kind of hanging there, feels like. Because when he said without, I'm like, no, just deny. So I don't know when she's going to be back, how much she's going to be back, but she better get her butt to that freaking courtroom. I don't know why she wasn't there. It's like, seriously. Oh, me too, old soul. Like, I'm so over her. I'm so done with her. You have no idea. No idea. But for today, I better share my screen or you guys won't be watching anything. We are back to Betty. I know you guys have all just been waiting and waiting, wondering when it was going to happen. Sorry, woman, I got you on a bad pause, Miss Doctor. So this is if you don't know, we're watching the hey Sharon. She hey AJ, hey. How you doing, Sharon? No, I didn't play my video without sharing. That was different. That's on a different spot, Flash fan. But this is Dr. DiFrancesca, I think. Looks like it was windy that day or something. Hey AJ, hey Gabby. Gabby, I hope you at least heard the intro. You caught up with Betty over the weekend. It's wild. They showed the kids and jury's faces in court. Old soul, you should watch the Eileen Wuornos trial. We watched that one, and they the jury was shown 99% of the time. The camera would focus in on them, like zoom in. They were really never off the camera. It was really crazy. Yeah, Dog Mom, I know. A lot of people can't handle that trial. It's really hard. It's a really hard trial. It's just when I started and I gotta finish it, and I'm just wishing it would finish. I was hoping Friday was it. Hey June, how are you doing? Bouncing back between different channels right now. I must wonder if Ada, is there a verdict out yet or a verdict watch? Sharon, I beat Gabby. So anyway, we're back to the Betty Broderick trial. This trial took place in 1991. This is her retrial. They didn't show the second, or they didn't show the first trial. Sorry. You were almost on this trial as a juror. That is so crazy. I have so many people that have like weird connections to this trial. It's well, I mean, not so many. I have a few, but it's weird. It's crazy. That's just wild. So anyway, this trial took place in 1991. The second trial, there's a little news footage from the first trial of Betty testifying, but Betty's on trial for the unaliving of her ex-husband Dan, his new wife Linda. They'd been married for 6 months. Betty allegedly broke into their house to, according to the summary of her 2023 book, to confront them at around 5:30 in the morning, I believe, because that's when you confront people, and then unalive them in self-defense. Sorry. sleeping people are the most dangerous, especially when they're laying down and covered up in bed. I'm just throwing that out there. Don't trust them. They'll get you. They'll get you. Well, that probably would have active duty would probably do it, June. Oh, we could have maybe saw you on the as you were watching. Like, that would have been crazy. Sometime we had to talk about crazy Lori Daybell allocution statement. I watched up until I watched Brandon. I can't remember his last name. I watched his testimony. I watched everybody before him, and then they took a break, and so did I. And then I didn't watch her. I didn't watch anything else. I saw that she winked at Tammy Daybell's relative. I think was it her aunt, as she told Lori to rot either in hell or in prison. I'm not sure which one. Doesn't matter. Broodrow. I always want to say something else. But Lori's just evil. I was not in the Simpson jury. You never do know when they're going to turn over. They might get you. So anyway, we are back with Betty. We are on her defense. Betty's testified. This doctor testified that we watched right before we took the break to do Shonda, to do the Shonda trial. He was awful. Cold rage. What do you have? Cold rage, hot rage, weird things I've never heard of since then. So that he had written a book. I think he was more promoting that. He had never spoken to Betty, never spoken to Dan. I know people testify that way, but he didn't really have anything to say. He did never really talk about Betty and Dan, specifically their situation. He talked about other couples and their situations, like in his book, or people he'd actually had treated or had whatever seen in his office. It was just not good. I think this doctor maybe at least saw Betty. I don't know. I was trying to listen to her just a little bit of the beginning stuff, but honestly, I had like 6 things going on at the same time and I couldn't do it. And I was not on the Delphi trial. I saw that he had posted from his hospital bed, and that's really sad. He's too young for that stuff. Yes, her hair is very messy. I don't know. But anyway, let's get started. Let me know how the sound is, because Shonda, I had to have boosted all the way, so I have turned it down. So let me know how it is, please. I am a cheater. Flash fan.
DiFrancesca, that's spelled capital D-I, capital F-R-A-N-C-E-S-C-A.
Thank you. That's really loud.
Yes, Doctor, what is your
I'm a psychologist licensed in the state of California.
and what is your education in preparation for your profession?
My graduate training in psychology was at St. Louis University, where I received both a master's degree and a doctorate degree. Prior to that, I had majored in psychology at Newton College of the Sacred Heart in Boston, Massachusetts. Part of my training for my doctorate in psychology and my license involved an internship. I was required to have 3,000 hours of internship.
Okay. And was there any area that you concentrated on in your internship?
My training involved working with and training with children, adolescents, and adults in my internship and in my instruction at St. Louis University.
Okay, and what has been your professional experience?
I have worked as a consultant to schools. I have worked in private practice as a psychologist doing clinical and forensic work. And from 1974 until 1986, I worked for San Diego County Mental Health in the forensic department.
Had you worked as in any institutions where they were dealing with inpatient people?
Yes, I've worked, as part of my training, I worked in a psychiatric institution for institutionalized and severely disturbed children and adolescents. And part of my internship was to see adults who were inpatient at a psychiatric facility.
Connor, we'll stipulate that DiFrancesca's qualifications here. Set stipulation?
Well, Your Honor, I think that we should.
All right, go ahead.
Were you, now you indicated you worked from 1974 in the San Diego County Mental Health. Was there any particular department you worked in?
It was in the forensic department.
Okay, and what was what type of work were you doing in the mental health department?
What we would do would be evaluations on people referred from the court or from the probation department.
Okay. And have you taught or instructed at any institutions?
Yes, I taught a counseling psychology course years ago at Hood College in Maryland. I have taught the psychological testing and the MMPI and other objective testing at the California School of Professional Psychology, which is the graduate school training psychologist in San Diego. And I'm currently being asked to teach next semester there a course in what they call clinical inference, which teaches the students really how to put all the different psychological tests together and write a report. I've also taught for the state department that sets standards and training for probation officers and parole agents. And for them, I have taught various courses, including a class in psychopathology explaining all different mental illness and classes in personality disorders.
And do you have memberships in any professional affiliations? Do you hold any offices in those?
Yes, I'm a member of the American Psychological Association, which is our national association. I'm a member of the Society for Personality Assessment. I'm a member of our Academy of San Diego Psychologists, which is our local professional association. And I have been president of the Academy of San Diego Psychologists and have held various positions within that academy.
Okay. And were you, at some point in time, asked to work on the case of People versus Elizabeth Broderick?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Now, I take it that when you work on a case, you do get paid, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And is there a standard rate of pay that you are paid in this case?
Well, my standard rate of pay is $100 per hour. This case at this point is a court referred case. In other words, it will be paid at a court rate, and I will bill at $100 an hour. I'm not sure if they are paying that or half of that, perhaps $50. I'm not sure at this point.
Did you review any material in the preparation of testimony in this case?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell us the material that you reviewed? Type of material?
Yes, I reviewed the police reports. I reviewed the preliminary hearing transcript. I reviewed the transcript from the last trial. I reviewed the different medical files from County Mental Health, from Claremont Hospital, patient files from Dr. Gerald Nelson. I reviewed
Have you reviewed defense investigation reports?
I reviewed all of the investigative reports provided to me that were provided. The investigations were done by the defense, and the investigative reports prepared by the prosecution. I reviewed the two marriage encounter books, one that was prepared by Mr. Broderick, one that was prepared by Mrs. Betty Broderick. I reviewed transcripts of the telephone tapes from Mrs. Broderick leaving the tapes on the Mr. Broderick's phone machine. I reviewed, I listened to those tapes. I reviewed psychological testing materials from the different mental health professionals, including from Dr. Nelson's file, from Claremont Hospital, and from work done by Dr. Meredith Friedman.
Okay. Had you had an opportunity to review writings of Mrs. Broderick?
Yes, I reviewed, I read all of the diaries, and I read her story.
Okay. And have you had the opportunity to see Elizabeth Broderick at the county jail?
Yes,
And can you tell how many times you've seen her approximately?
nine times.
Okay. And the times that you've seen her, have that been for varying lengths of time and over various time periods?
Yes, that's true. I estimated that I spent about 12 and a half hours with Mrs. Broderick.
Now, there were, you indicated that that you've seen some tests of Elizabeth Broderick that were administered to her. Could you give us an idea of which tests those were?
I've seen Dr. Friedman's testing protocol, and Dr. Friedman administered a test called the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory 2, Milan Clinical Multi-Axial Inventory 2, Rotter Sentence Completion, a Rorschach, a Shipley Institute of Living Scale, Thematic Apperception Test, projective drawings, and a hand test. I also saw and reviewed Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventories administered by Dr. Nelson and by jail staff at the jail. And I also saw a Milan administered at Claremont Hospital by Dr. Louis Nydorf.
Okay. And the tests that you've seen administered to Elizabeth Broderick, were those all tests that were done at one period of time or over a long period of time? How would you characterize those?
No, they were done at different times over a number of years, I think beginning in 1986.
Okay. And what is and were you also able to review various opinions of mental health people, either interpreting the scores or interpreting their impressions of what they saw of Elizabeth Broderick over a period of time?
Yes, I reviewed the files, including the narratives in the county mental health records, in the jail county mental health records, in the Claremont Hospital records. I reviewed Dr. Nelson's notes. I reviewed notes as well as an investigation interview with Dr. Jacobson, who also saw her. I forgot to mention, I reviewed a deposition of Dr. Gerald Nelson and trial testimony during the divorce, and I reviewed a deposition of Dr. DeVos.
Okay. And I take it that in your reviewing of the transcript from last year, you were able to review testimony of people who testified in the last trial as to her mental condition.
That's right. I reviewed the trial transcript, including Dr. Lusterman's testimony, Dr. Zonkin's testimony, the prosecution psychiatrist, Dr. Goldspan's testimony, and my own testimony.
Okay. And what is the purpose of giving psychological tests?
Psychological tests help in determining a diagnosis, an understanding of the person's functioning over time, and it gives more data than simply just having an interview.
Okay. And is there a purpose in having an interview with somebody when you're making a determination or a diagnosis?
Well, I think an interview is very important, because what you're doing when you're doing a psychological or psychiatric evaluation is that there are many hypotheses regarding what is wrong with someone, and you're weighing the evidence, and as you have an interview, you are developing hypotheses, and you check those hypotheses out from information that you then develop later in the interview from reading materials, and then from also looking at the tests. so that at the start of an evaluation, there are many possibilities regarding what's wrong with somebody. But as you proceed, then some are more confirmed by all of the data and some have less support in the data.
Okay. Now, in this case, were you able to make a diagnosis that was consistent with her functioning over time?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you do that?
Well, in this case, I was able to be helped by having information regarding Mrs. Broderick's functioning prior to my seeing her, including descriptions of her from people who knew her prior to 1983 when she indicated that the problems began. I had some writings from her from 1976 that was very helpful. And then also I collected a history, got historical information from her, and then historical information from the other reports available to me. Of course, very important were the observations by the trained people, psychiatrists who saw her in the past. And also some of the tests help with giving an understanding of a person's long-term functioning.
Okay. And were you able to make a diagnosis in this case?
Yes, I was.
And how do you make, when we use the term diagnosis, what are we talking about?
Well, when you're talking about a diagnosis, really all you're talking about is a summary statement or a label signifying what's wrong with the person, what the problem is.
Okay. And how is that done in the field of psychology or psychiatry? What's the method that's used?
Well, in terms of diagnosis, you typically give a diagnosis regarding what's wrong with him on two different axes. The second axis, I'll tell you because that's the easiest, are long-term conditions that would be either a personality disorder or a learning disorder. And the idea is that those are chronic conditions that underlay any acute conditions, anything that might be happening right now. So on axis 2, if there is a personality disorder diagnosis, that's where it goes. On axis 1, you diagnose everything else. So if a person is schizophrenic, that would go on axis 1. If their problem was alcohol abuse, that would go on axis 1. If their problem was depression, that would go on axis 1.
Okay. Now on axis 1, were you able to, was there any diagnosis that you made of Elizabeth Broderick?
Yes, I diagnosed her as having a depressive disorder and a major depressive episode, and I diagnosed it as recurrent.
Okay. And what is a depressive disorder?
When we say depressive disorder, we're talking about a diagnosis that there is something wrong with affective functioning, emotional functioning. A depressive disorder is more than feeling depressed.
The severity of when it hits me or anything like that. But, if I had any idea, I wouldn't mind. To be honest.
I
Do
don't
you
know.
understand that what has been contained in media
What is
coverage of this case, either in the
happening?
past or in the future, is not evidence?
I understand that, yes, ma'am.
Have you read anything at all about?
What is happening? That is court TV audio. I have no idea who that is, what it is. It's just this woman talking, and that audio is coming in. So, okay, it's not me. I have nothing else playing. I hit pause just to make sure like there's something weird going on. Alrighty then. I don't know what that is. I'm sure this is like the important part of the case too. Court TV's bored. I thought maybe it was the voices in my head. I didn't know. I was looking to make sure something didn't just start playing on its own. Court TV's disgusting. Her hair is bothering me. It's big. I don't know if it's a wig or not, Gabby, but it's big. All right, well, I don't know what we're going to hear, and I apologize for it being completely out of my control. And the bell. Oh, Gabby.
this case or heard anything about it on
That's
How
fine.
can
news?
you miss it?
Oh, it's not. Sorry.
Do you understand that as a juror, you would have to base your decision solely on the evidence presented in court?
Yes, ma'am.
And sometimes that's easy for people or difficult depending on what information they have available to them or in their own personalities. Do you believe that you as a
Low energy is typically
All right,
a
we're back.
complaint with people who are depressed, feeling that they just don't have the energy that they did in the past. You will see crying spells. People will become detached from others, spend some time withdrawing from people, but you'll see often a very emotional detachment from people who they were not detached from in the past. Thinking changes. The expectations they have are that negative things are going to happen, and when they interpret a situation, if there is a possibility for a pessimistic interpretation and an optimistic interpretation, they will typically take the pessimistic interpretation. They feed themselves information about how helpless they are and how hopeless. They feel overwhelmed and feel that there's nothing that they can do to solve their problems. Typically, you'll hear people say that they feel like they're in a hole and they can't climb out, or they feel like something is pushing them down, that type of a sense. Really, their whole psychic world and everything they see is colored by this feeling of doom and feeling of depression.
Do you see anything in regards to the person's personal appearance? You frequently see that, and what would you see if you see a major depression?
Well, it's not uncommon for somebody to let their physical appearance go, to not be concerned about how they dress or the hair and that type of thing, or at least not as concerned. Oftentimes people describe just having difficulty getting dressed, so often they will spend much more time in their pajamas and their robe, stay in bed later, and it's an effort to get dressed every day. It's an effort to fix their hair.
Will there be anything that you see you expect to see weight gain, for instance?
Well, a typical changes are eating disorders, either a loss of weight, some people can't eat at all, or some people eat as a way of trying to make themselves feel better so that you will see a weight gain.
Does it have anything to do with self-esteem?
Yes, self-esteem for a depressed person is tremendously affected. You don't like yourself. You look at everybody else and think that they have some answer or some magic that you don't have. Very often what happens with people who are depressed is well-meaning friends will say, snap out of it. There's no reason to feel this way. The world is wonderful. Just walk outside. Look how lucky you are. And then that makes them even feel worse because they can't snap out of it. And because there must be something very wrong with them, or especially wrong with them, that everybody else can feel good and they can't feel good.
Okay. And does it have any impact on a person's either will to live or how they feel about life in general?
Well, of course, depressed people are at a risk for suicide, and most people who do commit suicide are depressed. They often feel like life is not worth living, and that they wish they were dead. Even people who aren't suicidal will say to you, "I'm not going to commit suicide, but I sure wouldn't mind it if I ended up dead somehow," that type of thing.
Okay. Now, when you have someone that has major depression, is that something that's so pervasive that every minute of their life they appear to be in a major depressed mode with somebody?
Well, with any diagnosis, there's always a continuum from someone who has the symptoms massively and, for example, needs to be in a hospital, and somebody who has the symptoms but is able to control the symptoms part of the time. So the types of different pictures you will see will be somebody who is able to put themselves together and do well in the morning, but by the afternoon they start dragging. And and the evenings are very difficult for them, and at nighttime and going to bed and being alone are very difficult for them. Or you might get the opposite, the person who takes a long time to be able to propel themselves out the door, so that they function like putting one foot in front of the other, but they are able to get themselves going and in gear by noon. You'll see people who will do well for a little while, and then they will then drop back down into a depression. Typically, with somebody who's suffering from a recurrent depression, you see that they'll propel themselves for a little while, they'll do well, people think that they're doing better, and then again the depression kind of overtakes them. Usually when something happens that they interpret as traumatic, then the depression comes and hits them again.
Okay. Now, you indicated people being able to master depression or propel themselves. Were you able to see that in Mrs. Broderick at all?
Well, I think that she does a lot of masking of depression as well as attempting to master it. She does propel herself into activity, and she also puts her feelings almost like into compartments and tries to suppress them and repress them, so that she actively, I think a great deal of the time, fights against her depression. Even with me, when she would start to cry, she would immediately choke that back and make a joke, a flippant comment, usually kind of self-derogatory comment, and immediately cut off the tears.
Now, when we're talking about, are there different kinds of diagnosis of depression that you can have?
Yes. When you're talking about affective disorders or disorders of emotion, there are many different diagnoses. And what a diagnosis really does is try to lead you in knowing what basically is wrong with the person, so you apply the right treatment. Now, some people have what's called a bipolar affective disorder, where they have bouts of depression and then they have bouts of what you call mania or hyperactivity, and they flip-flop back between these two extremes. Another name for depression, but less severe than a major depressive disorder, is called a dysthymic disorder. Dysthymic, it just means depression. And that, when you give somebody that diagnosis, that suggests that they are in a chronically depressed state, but they're still functional. They're still able to go to work. They're still able to take care of their children or whatever. Another diagnosis along that same affective category is a cyclothymic, a cyclothymic disorder is someone who bounces back between energy and being manic, hyperactive, and depressed, but the cycles and the symptoms don't seem so extreme as a major depressive disorder or a bipolar affective disorder, but that they're constantly cycling between depression and propelling themselves into activity on the other cycle.
Now, were you able to, was there any mental health professionals at the beginning of her testing, and what you indicated was in 1985, that saw something less than a major depressive disorder and saw, for instance, a cyclothymic disorder?
Well, Dr. Jacobson, who saw Mrs. Broderick, may I refer to my notes in terms of a date when he saw her?
Yes.
Thank you. The first time he saw her was in 1980, before this happened, when she came to him for another reason. But then when he started seeing her and noted that she also had problems was in 1985. And I think that his impression at that time was a cyclothymic disorder, which is the one that I just described, that talks about depression and then cycles of manic behavior.
Okay. Now, when you were talking about the masking of depression, and you also talked about suppression of denial, were you able to see any of that from the notes of the therapist at the jail? where she's being held at Las Colinas?
Well, after the killings, Mrs. Broderick was interviewed by a number of different mental health people who work as a part of county mental health, but they're situated in the jail. And one of the therapists was a social worker, Louise Hines, and she indicated that she thought that there was a great deal of denial and maybe a shock, because she would do things like there would be tears in her eyes. I think she used the word, a glimmer of tears in her eyes, and smiling broadly at the same time. She talked about a painful death from cancer of a dear friend of hers and was smiling as she talked about it. One of the deputies wrote a note to county mental health saying Mrs. Broderick was awake much of the night last night and crying, sometimes crying very hard. And when the social worker confronted her with this, she dismissed it and denied it. So that you get a picture of somebody who is not, that there is a lot of emotion going on there. There is a tearing, there's the crying at night, but not able to deal with it, not able to talk about it, not able to share it with other people.
Okay. Was there, in the notes, was there other mental health professionals there that either saw this state of shock or saw a depressive episodes?
Yes, but may I refer to the notes just for a second to refresh my mind? Thank you. That she was eventually seen by a psychiatrist, and I think it was Dr. Robinson, and he was trying to assess her. He was concerned about suicide, and that his evaluation was interrupted by attorney Mr. Mound, I think at that time, because it was soon after Mrs. Broderick had come into jail, and the attorney felt that she should not be talking to anybody without first talking to an attorney.
Did he talk about some symptom, labelle?
He described her as having the symptom labelle indifference, which is a hysterical symptom, and was concerned that she was in, like, I think, a hysterical shock. Later on, she saw a psychiatrist, and when her depression became more obvious in terms of symptoms and her inability to cope, and was prescribed Prozac, which is an antidepressant medication, and eventually did take that antidepressant medication. And I don't remember the psychiatrist's name who prescribed that, but I think it was Dr. Butler, I'm not positive.
And would it be unusual, someone who was in hysterical shock, not even to remember having an interview with that person?
Well, that's very typical of someone who is in shock, that they, especially after a trauma, something terrible happening, that they will have real holes in their memory for right after the incident, so that it will be, some things they'll remember and some things they won't remember, and there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason why they remember what they do and what they don't. But it's not unusual to have someone not even remembering being interviewed.
And were you able to see from the interviews of various people that she would do anything to hide, whether she did do anything to hide her depression from other people?
I'll object and ask the sidebar.
We'll have a sidebar, Jefferson's name.
What are the causes of depression?
Well, there are many different factors involved in depression. The typical cause that one considers is loss of a valued object. Sometimes this involves a traumatic injury, like or a sickness where you lose a a prior state of health. Certainly loss, like a loss of a job, can precipitate a depression. Divorce, death of somebody in the family is likely to precipitate a depression. A loss of a relationship, a loss of a friendship, a loss of material possessions, like people who have lost their house in a hurricane. You will see that as precipitating a depression. Even if a person's, sometimes we see people who are depressed and there doesn't seem to be a definite loss, but typically when you get to know them and you discuss what's wrong, they will have told themselves or interpreted their world in such a way that they feel a sense of hopelessness and a sense of helplessness because of a loss or something like that.
Does when you talk about helplessness and hopelessness or lack of control over negative events, does that have any impact on whether the person is likely to be depressed?
Well, it has impact. A sense of helplessness and a sense of hopelessness has impact not only on whether you're going to be depressed, but on the depth of the depression and how stable it is. So that if you feel that the problem that you are facing is stable over time and that there's nothing that you can do to resolve that problem, then you are at risk for suffering a very severe depression and for it not getting better for a long time, for it being very difficult to resolve. Your sense of lack of power to resolve the issue, so that if something is very global and there's nothing you can do about it, then you're at risk for having a very stable long-term depression. For example, if you're laid off from work, and if you're laid off because that company is having difficulty, you are at risk for depression, but you're at much greater risk for depression, and the depression is likely to last longer if indeed you do become depressed, if not only that company is having problems, but all the companies with, for example, within that city or within the aerospace industry, and you're an engineer and it doesn't look like you'll be able to get another job. So that it's kind of a global sense of hopelessness that envelops the person and they become powerless.
Does the research show anything about how people estimate the kind of control they have over the events surrounding them, depressed people?
Well, of course, the whole problem with depression is that it's very cyclical, so that once you start thinking like a depressed person thinks, then your estimation of your own sense of power and ability is colored by the mood and the depressed sense that you have. So that typically, and I think the research has shown that people tend to underestimate the amount of control they actually do have, and have tremendously negative expectations about what life is going to be like for them.
Okay. And are there other research findings that they find with people that are depressed?
Well, there are many others, but things that...
Can you give us some examples of other things related to people who are depressed?
Objection or relevance?
Well, it's vague, sustained on that ground.
Does depression have any effect, and does the research support how people either select or process this information they're getting?
Objection vague.
I think that's an answer. No, overruled. You can answer that, Doctor.
Well, typically, I think I did say that if there is an array of information out there and they can interpret something many different ways, they will typically interpret it the way that it is least flattering to themselves and least hopeful and most damaging. They
Your Honor, and I would object as to double.
So objections overruled. Continue your answer, Doctor.
Your Honor, I would just at least like a ruling. I thought we were going to have one objection from one attorney.
That's correct. Which one's going to be on the cross? You do the objections, Go ahead.
And the other thing is that they typically, it's very common for somebody who's depressed to be very past oriented, to live in the past, think in the past, and function in the past.
Does it affect their ability to perceive time or how they remember time?
Typically, the time sense is distorted.
Okay.
You will see people talking about things that that happened a long time ago as if they just happened, and it's almost as if they've not resolved things, negative things in the past, and so that and don't put things behind them, so that everything is still very salient and important in their life.
Now, if we could talk about Mrs. Broderick's symptoms of depression and the diagnosis. Can you tell us, has there been a consistency of diagnosis as to some depressive disorder?
Yes, there has been a consistency in the diagnosis as to some type of depression that she was suffering.
Okay. And would that be with not only the doctors she's seen, but at the hospitalization she's had and at the county jail?
Overruled. You can leave in that area. Go ahead.
Yes, she was diagnosed as having a bipolar. Let me step back from that. In 1986, I believe it was, she was hospitalized for a short while. She was originally taken to county mental health. This was after she had banged into Mr. Broderick's front door with her vehicle. She was taken to county mental health, and while there, they gave her a diagnosis.
Can we just call it what it is? She didn't bump it. She didn't bang it. She crashed into it. She did some damage. Come on. Sorry. I also just needed a break from this. I get it. Okay, Betty was depressed. I've been through depression in my life. I know a lot of people have been through depression in their lives. Everyone handles it differently, but the thing is, it's treatable. It's treatable. She didn't even try. Like, she was in the middle of the dining room and they're like, she just bumped it. Yes, crazy people run their cars into a house on 11X. What do you do? Typical Thursday. They do. They do. I guess for me, I've always thought, and I'm not a doctor, so don't come at me here. For me, I was thinking about people that are like severely depressed of hurting themselves more than they're going to go hurt somebody else. She didn't hurt herself. So she could have gotten some treatment. She just didn't. I do think that, but Ruthie, sorry, was reading Betty, and at the same time I was trying to say your name. I do think she was jealous. Absolutely, 100%. I also, and I've said this many times, I think they're all three, Dan, Linda, and Betty, were horrible to each other, awful, treated each other awful, did awful things. They knew how to just get under each other's skin, and they were all bad to each other. Betty was just the most bad. Like, she did the most horrible. So she was $16,000 a month. Plus, I think that was just her alimony. I think, well, she would have had child support if she would have had children, but she didn't. Plus, he was paying her bills. So I think he tried to hold back some of her payments when she was found in contempt of court or something. We kind of heard something about that. But still, that was 1991. It would be, somebody said it would be like $37,000 a month. And now, like, ugh, I'd take it. I'd take 16,000. I'm not picky. What's up, AT1? Hey, if you ain't rubbing doors, you ain't race. Oh, wait, those are car doors, not front doors. Yes, perfect storm. Yes, Dan left her, and I would bet money he would have left Linda and got a younger version of both of them. He had a type. He liked him young, not illegal. He wasn't doing gross stuff. But I guarantee Linda would have been, she'd been on her way out the door when she got to be, sent out to pasture, so to speak. Bye. Corn shucker. I don't math either. Somebody said that. I'm with you, old soul. 100%. Well, I would take that too. Did you mean to say red rum? Puddle down. Do I have to read that? I'm not reading that. Sorry. Oh, that made my day. I don't know. I know when she was up, I don't know if it was when she was up for parole, one of the times. Lee had said that she could come live with her. And I don't know about the other kids. It's hard to find when you look for information. Sometimes it's hard to know if you're looking at current information versus generally it'll have a date on it, but sometimes it doesn't. So it's hard to know, is this current or is this something that's just somebody's put back out there? Oh, Town. That was hilarious. I'm not reading anything else. Your autocorrect was when you weren't here, it caught Gabby one night and it was hilarious. So don't hate it. Just embrace it. It's funny. No, she's not, Flashman. No, she's not.
Of adjustment disorder with mixed emotional features, which mixed emotional features means anxiety and depression. They didn't immediately see her as someone who needed to be hospitalized, but they kept her in screening and indicated to her that was because she had made suicidal statements and homicidal statements, and therefore they wanted to make sure that she wasn't a danger. She was then transferred to Claremont Hospital. And when she went to Claremont Hospital, now I need to check my notes for a second, if I may.
Yes.
No, she's.
That's what the diagnosis was.
Well, the diagnosis changed. When she went to Claremont Hospital, then she received a diagnosis of dysthymic disorder, which I mentioned before. It means depression. She was then tested, given a test called the Milan test. And on the basis of that test, the psychologist who tested her, also interviewed her, gave her a diagnosis of dysthymic disorder, which is depression. Dr. Gary Levinson, who became her treating psychiatrist, I believe started out with a diagnosis of dysthymic disorder and adjustment disorder, And then he changed his diagnosis to a bipolar affective disorder, which in essence says that no, it's more severe than just a dysthymic disorder. It's a major affective disturbance. So that was the diagnosis at Claremont.
And over time, when she saw, for instance, Dr. Nelson, did he diagnose her as having any type of depressive disorder?
Yeah, what particular time?
You said over a period of time.
That's what I mean.
You can answer that question, just yes or no.
Yes, he did.
The and we've already gone through the county once she was in jail. The test that Dr. Friedman did they also show a depressive disorder?
Yes, the tests that have been done by Dr. Friedman are consistent with a diagnosis that she is suffering from depression. The MMPI that was done, the 2 MMPIs that were done in the jail are also consistent with an affective diagnosis, a diagnosis of depression. Dr. Gerald Nelson administered an MMPI in his office in 1987, and that was the results of that MMPI are also consistent with a diagnosis of depression.
Did you talk to her about the symptoms normally associated with depressive disorders?
Her meaning
Betty Broderick.
Mrs. Broderick. I talked with her regarding how she was feeling, yes.
Okay, and did she describe what you would expect to see in someone who's suffering from depression?
When I was working with her, yes, to the point that I was concerned, and she talked to me about whether she should take Prozac. She's afraid to take medication. I encouraged her to consider taking the medication and work with the psychiatrist regarding that. She described herself pre-incident also as having crying spells. I think she indicated one time that sometimes she had such difficulty walking around that she would find herself holding herself up from counter as she moved from counter to counter in the kitchen. She used the term, it felt like a horse was standing on my chest to describe how she was feeling. She did, in essence, described what she was feeling through her diaries also.
Now, did the diaries, you were able to review the diaries?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and was there things in the diaries that showed that she was suffering from depression?
Yes.
And what kind of things would those be?
Just statements of hopelessness and despair, not knowing who to turn to for help, feeling like her life as it was over and she had nothing to look forward to and that type of thing.
Were you able to determine whether there was anything as far as her appearance that was consistent with diagnosis of
I
depression?
think it's been asked and answered, Your Honor.
Sustained.
We've talked about factors that can lead to depression. Were you able to see factors in regards to this case, Mrs. Broderick, that contributed to her depression?
Objection asked and answered. An objection to the.
Sustained.
On what ground, Your Honor?
Asked and answered. She enumerated where she saw factors that related to depression.
And you've enumerated the factors. Maybe we can go through them now.
I think she has.
Well, we'll hear the question.
You mentioned the divorce was a factor. In what way was the divorce a factor?
Objection, she's testified to that. Besides, to the extent of it,
Overruled.
Your Honor, we have a sidebar on this.
No, you answer that, Doctor.
Well, I think that in the sense of the divorce, that Mrs. Broderick, it was a tremendous loss to her. She was losing not only her husband, and it
I'm
was
sorry, excuse me, Your Honor, this is all hearsay.
No, overruled. Go ahead.
she was losing her husband. That's a frequent precursor to depression. She indicated, and you get a sense of how much the loss would mean to her when you read her marriage encounter statements of 1976, where she talks about
Same objection.
This is irrelevant now. Sustained.
um,
There's no
Hold
question
on.
pending, Doctor.
The, did her relationship with her husband play a part in how she responded to the divorce and her depression?
Objection, I think it's beyond the scope of the inquiry here generally, and it calls for hearsay.
Overruled. You can answer that. Yes or no, Doctor?
yes.
And how is that?
Same objection.
Overruled. You can answer that.
Well, in terms of what was happening from Mrs. Broderick's perspective, she was in a very powerless position, and the sense of powerlessness that she felt, I think, is one of the prime factors contributing to her depression.
The, did the affair that Mr. Broderick was having, did that affect her affective mood or her depression?
Same objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
From Mrs. Broderick's perspective, that was a tremendous rejection of her. I think it's important to understand her, part of her personality functioning, to understand what that rejection meant. Mrs. Broderick is the type of person who is very important to please others, especially the people who are important to her. I even refer to her as a people pleaser. That's one of the things that is a problem for her. And the approval of Dan Broderick was always very, very important to her. She sought it, and the believing that he was having an affair was, of course, an extreme rejection and the epitome of his disapproval. That created a sense of real hopelessness in her, in terms of she did not know what to do to correct that problem. She wanted to win him back. She wanted to correct that problem. She wanted to correct herself and make herself more acceptable so that he would love her.
Was there,
Before you ask your next question, does any member of the jury need a break? I was planning to go to the lunch hour, if that's agreeable. For the witness, you're all right?
We'd like a break, Your Honor.
The reporter needs a minute.
Your Honor, we have a break. One of our members.
All right, we'll take a recess for 10 minutes, maybe long? 5 minutes. Take a
Goodness.
recess for 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Please remember the admonition.
Dr. Goldsby and have a similar opinion that this,
I can't. I agree with you, Ruthie. Like, it is sad that she just could not. The fact that Linda had already taken her place. They were married. She could not move on. She could not let go. And it's sad because their kids lost both their parents. They were separated. There's a lot that happened because she could not move on. And well, that sweater has to be early urban camo. Think before you speak. Slow down and avoid the and ums. Ah, noted. I can get bad about it, especially when I'm thinking. The judge is like, get me out of here. I need 4 glasses and the biggest cheeseburger ever. Yes, vehicle. There you go, Gabby. She went into vehicular home redecoration. Where's the HGTV show for that? It's I'm trying to think of a title, but I can't. I can't come up with one right off. Say what? Vehicle. I think there was part of that too, Old Soul, that Betty really wanted to win. I don't think she liked to lose. And had she left Dan, yep, she wouldn't have struggled at all. I do think that. AJ, say the longest word in the world. I don't know what that is. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I have no idea. Well, I don't know how to say it if you don't know how to spell it. Okay, well, I just said it. I want to get to cross. I hope we do. I have this sped up. I'm scared to speed it up anymore. But I do have it sped up. In case anybody was wondering. I don't know if that one. I'm not even going to try Puddletown. Mississippi. You know what they have in Mississippi? Vehicles. And they say it just like me. I'm not speeding it up that fast, Gabby. Although I'm tempted. I am tempted. All right. Massachusetts. I can only say that on a good day.
That she was a depressed person whose rage would be turned inward.
Objection, I don't believe that. It's fine.
Booker, would you answer that?
Yes, he indicated that as he said a lot of things, but one of his findings was that she was depressed, and he described the depression as rage turned inward. And he also talked of it in terms of a loss, a significant loss, which causes depression.
Okay. Have you ever heard the term of suicide attempt or suicide gesture?
Yes.
Okay. And you indicated depressed people can be suicidal. When we use the term attempt, what are we talking about?
Objection, irrelevant.
Rule.
Well, a suicide attempt means that somebody has done something that shows that they are trying to kill themselves or thinking about killing themselves seriously.
Okay. When the fact that somebody is not successful or the attempt would not be one that would necessarily lead to death, does that mean that they don't have suicidal ideation or they don't wish to die?
No, that doesn't mean that at all.
And why is that?
Well, when you have somebody who what they call a suicide gesture and are suggesting by that they really didn't want to kill themselves, usually what you have is somebody who is ambivalent about dying. There's part of them that wants to die very badly, and there's part of them that wants to live very badly. And so that the suicide gesture is typically thought of as a cry for help. It doesn't mean they're not really suicidal, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to commit suicide in the future, but it means that they probably are ambivalent, and but they feel so bad that they need help and that they are crying out for help.
People who are depressed and have suicide attempts in the past, are they someone at greater risk for suicide?
When you are assessing somebody in terms of risk for suicide, of course, things that are important include whether there have been prior suicide attempts, and included in that would be what somebody might call a gesture, but prior suicide attempts, of direct verbal warning, indirect verbal warning, or behavioral warning. Suddenly, a feeling of well-being, and also hopelessness, a sense of hopelessness is one of the things that you look for suicide risk. You also look for certain diagnostic categories, including any major affective disorder, any depression, and certain personality disorders, including a borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. And you also look for impulsivity.
Is there a time that someone who is in a depressed state is more at risk for suicide, given whether they're on getting a little bit better, feeling worse?
Well, sometimes we're lulled into a false sense of security with somebody who has been suffering a depression, and they start doing a little better. And we think they're okay now, but there's a lot of suicides that happen within that window, within that gap, because what you have happening is somebody who has a little more energy now. And the energy includes the energy to kill themselves. Also, if they start getting a little bit better and then something happens that reverses that, then they're also at risk for suicide, because I think it makes it much more damaging in terms of developing this overall sense of hopelessness that I've talked about.
Okay. Now, you talked about the affective disorder being on axis 1, and you told us on axis 2 is personality disorders. What is a personality?
Well, our personality is the way we would be described by other people, our traits, the way we would describe ourselves, that involves our interaction with our world. It's an interplay, really, of our temperament, which we're born with, and all of the experiences we've had in our life, so that we develop our unique personality. The sense of which is that there are no two people who are exactly the same. We all have our unique personality.
So when we have someone who said that one person is shy and one person is outgoing, that might be a description of their personality?
Yeah, those are personality traits with which we describe one another, and we think about people in terms of some of these traits.
Okay. And what is a personality disorder then?
A personality disorder involves someone whose personality style, the way they are with the world, has ceased to work for them. Rather than helping them deal with the world, relate with people successfully, and solve problems, it keeps them from doing all of these things. It is maladjustment. It's a non-adjustment to the world.
Okay. And so when we use the example of shyness being a personality, would that be a style? Is that what you mean by style?
Objection has to answer.
Oh, Road can answer that.
Well, shyness can be a style, or it can be a trait that is involved in a personality disorder as well. For example, you might have a person who is shy, but who does the things that they are expected to do in terms of conducting their life, and is able to work, interact with people, meet a woman or a man, go through a courtship, marry, that type of thing. Or you might meet someone whose shyness is so tremendous, it's so debilitating to them that they do not have a normal life. They were withdrawn from people. They're too afraid of rejection, so they don't risk and they don't form relationships. So then you've taken something that could be a style, but now you're talking about it as a disorder.
Now, does it, and when you see a personality turn into a disorder, is there a reason for that?
Well, usually when you give a diagnosis of a personality disorder, you're usually saying by that diagnosis that this is what's been wrong with this person for a long time, at least since adolescence. And in investigating people who have personality disorders, you usually find trauma, things that have happened to them in terms of their upbringing that would be predictive of a personality disorder. Not always do you see a trauma. For example, using the same example that we've been using about shyness, you might have a child who is born with the temperament of being real sensitive. And all children are subjected to a fair amount of rejection in childhood, not being chosen for games, not having their best friend not like them anymore, having a teacher make fun of them, that type of things. Well, some children that would roll off their back, whereas other children who were real sensitive, that might be very traumatic and very injurious, and that person might develop in a way that they were dysfunctional or relatively dysfunctional as an adult.
Okay. Did it appear that at the time that you were looking at Elizabeth Broderick, did she have any type of personality disorder?
Well, I diagnosed her as having a personality disorder, and I had some problem in doing that because what I tried to do was reconcile her functioning right now with also the descriptions that I heard from the investigative reports of the people who have known her for a long time, from the people who testified to what she was like pre-1983, where she is described as functioning fairly well. But by definition, a personality disorder diagnosis suggests that the person would not have been functioning well. But I did, at any rate, diagnose her as having a borderline personality disorder. I also diagnosed her as having a histrionic personality disorder with narcissistic features.
Okay. And when we're talking about a borderline personality disorder, what are we talking about?
The borderline personality disorder suggests that someone did not develop a sufficiently strong, stable identity, self-identity, so that the behaviors that you see and the symptoms that you see is somebody who, number one, is very changeable. They're very unstable. Their thinking changes from time to time. They have what we call label emotions, in that they will go from baseline emotions to irritability, to elation, to depression very quickly, and without it being real clear what sent them from one emotion to another. They will typically go from idealizing a person at one point to devaluing that same person at another point, and the provocation does not seem to match the degree of loss of investment in that person. You will see suicide gestures, impulsive spending, behaviors that have a high likelihood of creating problems for that person themselves. You will see anger outbursts and poor control of anger, a tremendous fear of abandonment. And again, the core problem with these people is that in and of themselves, that they have no sense of purpose, direction, who they are. They're not anchored anywhere. They don't have a sense of identity.
When you're making a diagnosis of a person, first of all, was there a pre-existing diagnosis of a borderline personality disorder?
Objection, Betty.
Overruled.
I don't understand your question.
Before you saw her, was there any literature or any test to show that she had any type of personality disorder?
Okay. It does not appear, from what I could see, in pre-1983 that she would have been easily diagnosed as having a borderline personality disorder. And my way of dealing with that was to try to understand her relationship with her family, her relationship with Dan Broderick, and to see whether something was being provided to her in terms of identity that she didn't have on her own. And I drew conclusions regarding that.
And what conclusions did you draw?
Well, it appeared to me, and I feel that Mrs. Broderick's identity was not well developed. She said to me that she came from a family, a very strict family, and there was not a lot of independent action that was sanctioned.
I'm sorry, Doctor. You're not allowed to impose an objection based on our earlier trial motion.
Sustained.
Your Honor, maybe we approached the bench. I'm not aware of what the earlier trial motion is.
Sure.
Tell me.
Go ahead.
I'm going to ask you about the diagnosis of other mental health professionals of Mrs. Broderick, which would be 1985 and forward. Okay. Was there any diagnosis by those people as to any personality disorder?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't remember that there was.
Okay. The, was there at Claremont Hospital,
Yes,
was there a diagnosis of a personality disorder?
yes, there was. She was diagnosed as having a borderline personality disorder.
Okay. And Claremont Hospital was a 1986 incident that was from the bumping of the front door.
That's correct.
Now, to have, are there certain behavioral, is there a certain guide that psychologists and psychiatrists use to give a label to an effect to a disorder such as a borderline personality disorder?
And there is a diagnostic and statistical manual, which is a book that has been developed that describes most of the diagnoses in terms of behaviors. And there is a consensus among the mental health community to try to use that diagnostic manual so that when we are giving a diagnosis, the other people are recognize what we're referring to, and if they want to give the same diagnosis, you're talking the same language, so to speak.
When we talk about borderline personality disorder, does DSM-3 list a number of factors, behavioral patterns that under that diagnosis?
Yes, it does.
And is there a certain number of them that you must see to have somebody characterized of having a borderline personality disorder?
Yes, usually there will be a listing of symptoms, say 7 to 9 symptoms and behaviors, and to meet the criteria for that diagnosis, you will need to have, say, 5 of those symptoms or behaviors.
Okay. Now, does somebody, when we talk about, is the word identity or self-identity a word that you're familiar with?
Yes.
And what are we talking about?
A sense of who the person is, and that they have their own purpose and direction, that they are a stable person who has what you would call, or what you might call, an executive function inside that helps them organize their experience and make sense of it, and in light of their own values and in light of their education and in light of their purpose and direction.
And were you able to make an assessment as to Mrs. Broderick's self-identity?
I felt that it was poorly developed and that there were significant problems with self-identity.
And what was the reason for that?
Well, it appeared to me that Mrs. Broderick had not developed her own sense of direction and purpose and sense of who she was. She saw herself and perceived herself as an extension of Dan Broderick, and was like a right arm. And so his identity became her identity. They became meshed, and she didn't really have her own identity at the time of their separation.
Okay. Now, was that something that that you obviously got from some of the conversations you had with Mrs. Broderick?
Yes.
Were you able to see any supporting data in regards to that?
Well, it was helpful to me to
No
see.
response, Your Honor. Call for yes or no.
Sustained.
Yes.
Okay, and what was that?
Objection as to any hearsay response.
Overruled, go ahead.
It was helpful to me to see the marriage encounters, both Mr. Broderick and Mrs. Broderick, which were, of course, 1976, and really see her poorly developed identity and her all her conversation, or most of her conversation and her writing, had to do with Dan Broderick and the family. And when she is asked to define herself and who am I, she wasn't really able to do that, except in light of being a mother and a wife, and that she was a nice person and that she was pretty, but there was no other real identity. And she even talked about it in some of her writings, the fact that she didn't really have her own sense of purpose.
And were you able to see anything in Mr. Broderick's that related to their relationship and her loss of identity in that?
Objection irrelevant and calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench on that? It's not, it's in the evidence.
Objection is
Well,
sustained.
just, you can approach the bench.
We'll take our noon recess at this time, ladies and gentlemen. Please remember the admonition not to discuss the case among yourselves nor allow anyone else to discuss it with you. No form any opinions until it's finally submitted to you. We'll see you at 1:30.
When you went to see Elizabeth Broderick, what was there any purpose other than evaluation of her that you went to see her for?
Yes.
And what was that?
I was asked to work with Mrs. Broderick in therapy because she was judged to not be doing well psychologically, and it was felt that I could help her.
Okay. Now, during the interviews that you had with her, did you go over a fair amount of information with her?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us the way that she would relate information? What was her way of relating information?
Well, that varied somewhat from time to time. At times, she would be really reluctant to talk at all. But when she started, it would be like unpopping a cork. It would just be stream of consciousness that she would talk, and she would be all over the map in terms of jumping from subject to subject and time period to time period.
Now, did you take notes during these interviews that you had with Elizabeth Broderick?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you, when you had your notes, was there sometimes that you would be verbatim, sometimes not?
Well, there was never a full session or a full meeting where I would take notes consistently and verbatim. That was impossible to do. I took notes for the most part to give myself information about what she was focusing on. And at the time that I started seeing her also, I did not know the Betty Broderick story. And so part of the reason why I took notes was to just have information for myself.
Okay. And did you, during the various interviews, did you cover various different issues?
Yes.
Okay. Did you go over with her the day of the homicide itself?
Yes.
Okay. Was that something, how did that come about?
Well, it was nearing the time that the last trial was beginning. She was seeing her attorney more and more. We had talked around it, but we had never talked about it. So I just simply asked her one day to tell me about what happened, about the shooting, the killings.
Okay. And how did that conversation go?
It was typical in the sense that she actually gave a very quick, rapid-paced, her speech was rapid-paced information that was summary information, I think, for the most part. And I took what notes that I could take.
Okay. Now, when you're taking notes, are your notes at the exact time she's saying the word, or how would you describe it?
No, in this case with Mrs. Broderick, I did not interrupt her, and I tried to keep up, but I was maybe 3, 4, sometimes even more sentences behind her, and sometimes I would just leave out whole sentences, several sentences and paragraphs, and catch up to her next point. And then just to keep writing, I just wrote what I could get down.
Okay. And did you, when you did have something that was exact quotes, would you do anything about that?
Well, when I catch a phrase that is a what I think is an exact quote, I will put it in quote marks. Yes.
Okay. Now, when she went through the incident within Daniel Broderick's bedroom, the writings that you have are those word for word writings as to, in other words, are they her exact words? Are they your words?
No, it's not vague. Overall.
Some of it might be her words and some of it might be my words recalling what she said. I tried to get down her words where I could, but I couldn't always. That was oftentimes far behind. Her speech is very rapid paced.
Okay. Now, did you spend much more detail going through her psychological well-being or psychological self in other areas other than just that one day?
Yes. I think that to clarify what I said was,
Objection, non-responsive.
That's the same.
When you indicate that you want to clarify, are you talking about this, about the note-taking itself?
yes,
And what did you want to clarify about that?
that I did not question her or stop her or ask her to repeat anything, which I would be doing if I were doing an evaluation for a specific person. Then I stop a person and I say, you're going too fast. Let me catch up with you. But I did not do that with Mrs. Broderick because it was therapy. It was not for the purpose of doing an evaluation at that point.
And was there, when you're doing an evaluation of somebody to make some determination of how they think and how they react to certain situations, are you able to do that from a general assessment of overall assessment of the people and an overall history, or does every person, every doctor have to talk, for instance, about a specific incident?
No, you don't have to talk about a specific incident to do an overall evaluation. No.
Okay. So was there, when you were reviewing the notes of other doctors, for instance, Dr. Goldsman, he did not go into the homicide at all?
No, he did not he did not question her about the homicide.
Okay. The, during the from your conversations, were you able to make any assessment of what control she had in her life?
Objection, improper question.
Sustained.
Well, were you able to make any assessment from talking to her about how she felt about her own identity?
Yes.
Ask and answer.
Sustained. The answer could stand.
Were you able to make an assessment from talking to her about how the marriage affected her identity?
Ask and answer.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench on this? Did Elizabeth Broderick, you testified as to the quieting of her inner voice and that she had an
Objection.
Your Honor, the code, can I get the code out of the report? It says with an expert, you're allowed to go, leave, go into an area.
Mr. Early, you don't need to get the code for me. Objection sustained.
Your Honor, do we have a bench conference so I can,
Didn't we just discuss this?
about a leading question?
Not leading questions, then perform it. I mean, the content of the question. You can lead. I'm aware of the fact you can lead in
It's a
certain areas.
foundational question, Your Honor.
Go ahead and finish it then. Let's hear the rest of it.
Judge, excuse me, that's what area we just talked about. It's obvious.
I think it is too, but I'll give him a chance to finish his question.
You testified about the quieting of the inner voice and
Same objection, and he's missing the others at this point. So let's do that.
Finish your question, Mr. Early.
well, I'll withdraw the question and ask, since there's been no testimony of it, did you make any findings about Elizabeth Broderick and the quieting of her inner voice?
Objection.
Overruled. Answer that.
Yes.
Okay, and what was that?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Well, it's just the topic of the sidebar, Mr. Early.
Looks like a little kid. Like, oh.
Your Honor, I'm having a hard time when that was sustained, assuming facts, not evidence. May we approach the bench so I can find out what the ruling is?
Sure, come on up.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. We are going to find out today. She's back tomorrow. Dang it. For a long time, too. 2 hours. Her attorney and her are very quick-tempered. So I wonder if they argue a lot. He did. Like, he's a judge. Also, he's moving fast because I haven't sped up. I do like these old cases just because, one, audio is good, but two, man, they go at it. Not like they're not allowed to in court these days. Judges don't let that happen very much. This judge keeps a pretty good handle on it, but this attorney gets really mad really fast. Wow, Gabby. Thank you. Being a member for 17 months. A long time. A long time. He's an adult toddler. Old soul. Oh, that's hilarious. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna have to take that one from you. Borrow it. I'll borrow it. I'll give it back. I don't know. Sharon, I don't know how long they're gonna talk to each other. Like, I think we get through her the rest of his direct cross, and I'm sure he will have redirect tomorrow. It's going to be longer than today. Yes, the Warnos trial they did yell. They did. And it was great. And we got to see a lot of it. That was even better. It can only go 2 hours, then he needs his diaper change. Well, Flashman, I will say, y'all, how y'all doing? However, I have to not clarify. I don't know. I've lived in Indiana longer than I lived in Nebraska now. So it's kind of, I'll use Puddletown. It's tainted a little because they say that here. We did not say that there. So it's not a true Nebraska y'all because it's got Indiana in there. He did seem to get his underoos on a bunch, the AT1. And he's very quick to get his underoos in a bunch. Corn shucker. The Warnos trial was a sausage fest because that guy drove a sausage truck. And she was a lady of the night. There was lots of sausage. Okay, better than I thought the person I heard say, y'all, you all. They might say you all. I can see that. I can. All right. So that's all I have for today. I know it's short. Tomorrow's long. There you go. I have a feeling I had to born a Husker, been a Hoosier since '86, but Nebraska's always home. Nebraska's always home. But yes, I've been here longer than they are now. Bummer. I put the intro together really, really quick today, so I probably better go change it. I probably better go take some. I mean, I can't change what's on here already, so I may get in trouble. But I probably better go change it. Who's your corn daddy? I don't know. Who's your corn daddy? Sorry. Are they still going over there with closing arguments? That was a long day. Where is that trial out of? No one of you know. I thought it was like on the East Coast. But they're going till like 8 o'clock my time, which is 7, 8 is time. Washington. That makes sense. Yeah, I lived in Nebraska till I was 12, almost 13, and then moved here a few months before I turned to a horrible 13-year-old teenager. Sweet corn is good, minus the corn sweat. Oh, is it? It's been long. For some reason, it feels like it's been very long, and I don't think it really has been. Flashman, my parents moved from here to California, but I've never lived in California. I don't know why you want to put me there. Don't put me there. Shenny lives in California. Shenny lived in San Diego when Betty was active. Shenny has some history there, not necessarily with Betty, but she was there I did not know Betty. You have no idea. You're just being a smartass. Gabby, I don't believe that. Say, you being a smartass. Whatever. I know we had a conversation about Menendez on Friday night. That wasn't me. That was that June? I think June. Well, June said she was almost on the Broderick trial or juror. Not she wasn't on the trial, on the jury. So it may have been June. And oh, Shenny. Sorry. I don't know. I was not live on Friday night. Phew, that's a lot of moving, AT1. Wow. I couldn't do it. Well, I mean, I could do it. There's a difference between can't and won't. And so I could do it. I wouldn't want to do it. So there. Okay. Well, all right. So I will see you guys all tomorrow at 6. And we'll finish up this amazing gripping testimony that this woman has given us. Hot mannequin love, hashtag tiny cat nipples. My mom grew up on a pig farm in Nebraska, so we're kin. See you, corn shuckers. All right, and on that note, I will see you guys all tomorrow. Have a good night, and I'll see you later.